Canada just opened the door to 49,000 Chinese EVs per year starting March 1st. And yes, some of them will be budget cars, under $20,000, cheaper than a used Civic. But here's what nobody's telling you. Half of those 49,000 cars, 24,500 of them, can be above $35,000. And some of those, they're legitimately fast, legitimately luxurious. And they're coming for BMW, Porsche, and Audi. You know, the brands that charge you $1,200 to replace a turn signal. These aren't cheap alternatives. These are performance EVs that'll embarrass some super cars for Model 3 money. So forget the budget segment for a second. Let me show you the 5 luxury Chinese EVs that could actually shake up the Canadian market, what dealerships are panicking about right now, and whether you should buy an EV today or just wait. Let's start with the one that has me genuinely excited. The Xiaomi SU7. Yes, that Xiaomi, the phone company, the people who make your $300 smartphone, they built a car. And it's not a joke. This thing looks like a Porsche Taycan, which is convenient because Porsche charges $120,000 for a Taycan, and Xiaomi charges not that. Seriously, the design is stunning, long, low, aggressive. But here's what makes it insane. 0 to 100 in 2.8 seconds. That's faster than most people's attention span on TikTok. And it has up to 668 kilometers of range. Now in China, this car costs around $30,000 US. In Canada, expect $40,000 to $50,000. But here's what makes this different from every other EV. If you're in the Xiaomi ecosystem, their phones, watches, smart home stuff, this car integrates with all of it. Your phone becomes the key, your watch controls the climate, your smart home syncs with the car. So if you've ever wanted your toaster to know when you're coming home, this is the car for you. It's basically a giant smartphone on wheels. They sold over 100,000 of these in the first year in China. People are waiting months to get one, and it could be coming here. If this car shows up in Canada for $45,000, that's Taycan performance for Model 3 money. And that's what has BMW dealers updating their LinkedIn profiles. Now, if you want a Chinese EV that just launched in Europe, literally last week, meet the Zeekr 007, which sounds like a Bond villain's code name, but is actually just a very good car. Zeekr is owned by Geely, which also owns Volvo. So there's real engineering credibility, you know, in case you were worried about buying a car from a company you've never heard of. And this car is a direct Tesla Model 3 competitor, but it's better in almost every way. 100 kilowatt-hour battery. 870 kilometers of range in China tests. Real world in Canada, probably 600 plus. The AWD version does 0 to 100 in 2.95 seconds. That's 637 horsepower, and it has 800 volt architecture, which means you can charge from 10 to 80% in about 15 minutes. Tesla can't do that. They're still on 400 volt because apparently waiting 45 minutes at a supercharger builds character. The interior is gorgeous. Nappa leather, premium materials, a massive screen, air suspension, 21 speaker audio system. And the price? In China, it starts at $30,000 US. In Europe, where it just launched, it's around 45,000 to 57,000 euros. But here's the thing, if they price it competitively in Canada, this could land at $40,000 to $50,000. That's Model 3 money for a car that's faster, more luxurious, and charges quicker. Which is terrible news if you just bought a Model 3 last month. Sorry. Alright, if you want a Chinese EV that actually feels premium, this is it, the NIO ET5. This is a luxury sedan, similar size to a BMW 3 Series. Gorgeous design, luxury interior, premium everything. But here's what makes NIO different. Battery swapping. Instead of waiting 30 minutes to charge, you pull into a NIO station and a robot swaps your entire battery pack in about 5 minutes. Full charge, done. It's like a pit stop, except instead of a Formula 1 team, it's a robot that hopefully doesn't confuse your car with someone else's. Now, this only works if NIO builds swap stations in Canada. That's a big if. Like, will Toronto ever finish the Eglinton Crosstown level of if? But if they do, that solves a lot of cold weather charging anxiety. Think about it. You're driving to Whistler in January. Your battery's at 20% because it's -15. Normal Canadian winter temperatures that make you question your life choices. You pull into a swap station. 5 minutes later, you're at 100% and back on the road. The guy at the Tesla supercharger is still sitting there, scrolling his phone, watching his range estimate drop while the heater runs. The ET5 has over 500 kilometers of range. Beautiful interior, premium materials, and if you subscribe to their battery service, you can upgrade to bigger batteries over time. Because who doesn't want a subscription for their car battery? We've got Netflix, Spotify, now batteries. Price should land around $45,000 to $55,000. That's less than a BMW i4 with better tech and probably fewer software bugs. If you're cross-shopping a Tesla Model Y, this is the one to watch. The XPeng G6 is a direct competitor. Similar size, similar layout, but with one major advantage: 800-volt architecture. What does that mean for you? You can charge from 10 to 80% in 20 minutes. Or add 300 kilometers of range in just 10 minutes. Range is over 750 kilometers on the Chinese test cycle. Real world in Canada, probably 500 plus in summer, 350 in winter. The interior is clean, minimal, very Tesla-like, big screen, good materials. And XPeng's driver assistance system is considered one of the best in China. Some say it rivals Tesla's full self-driving. Price should be around $40,000 to $50,000. That's Model Y territory, but with faster charging and more tech. Last one. And this is for people who want something that doesn't look like everything else on the road. The Zeekr 001 is a shooting brake. That's a fancy way of saying it's a sporty wagon. It looks like nothing else. Long, sleek, massive hatchback. Think Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo, but less expensive. Range is over 600 kilometers. 0 to 100 in 3.8 seconds. Premium interior with sustainable materials. Air suspension. And because Geely owns Volvo, these cars already meet Western safety standards. Been on sale in Europe for a while now. It's proven. People love it. Price should land somewhere between 45 and 55,000 Canadian dollars. That's BMW 4 Series Grand Coupe money, but with way more tech and better performance. Okay, those cars look great. The prices seem amazing. The specs are legitimately impressive. So what's the catch? Let me give you 5 reasons this might not go as smoothly as everyone thinks. You buy a Xiaomi SU7. It breaks down. Where do you take it? Right now there are 0 Chinese luxury EV dealerships in Canada, 0 service centers, 0 parts inventory. So if your Zeekr makes a weird noise, your options are basically YouTube tutorials and hope. These companies will need to build all of that from scratch, and that takes time. We're talking years, not months. So if you're an early adopter, you're also a guinea pig. Something goes wrong, you might be waiting weeks for parts to ship from China, which gives you plenty of time to contemplate your decisions. Like, why didn't I just buy a Camry like my parents told me to? Compare that to buying a BMW or an Audi, where there are service centers in every major city. Sure, they'll charge you $2,000 to change the air filter, but at least they're there. Here's something nobody's talking about. These cars were designed for China, Shenzhen, Shanghai, Guangzhou, places where cold means you might need a light jacket, not Winnipeg in February, where the cold physically hurts your face. EV range drops significantly in cold weather. We're talking 30 to 40% loss at -20. So that 600 kilometer range, congratulations, it's now 400. Hope you weren't planning to go far. Now, some of these cars have battery thermal management systems. Zeekr 007 has 800-volt architecture, which handles cold better. NIO's battery swap could be a solution, but we don't have real-world Canadian winter data on most of these vehicles yet. Translation: someone's gotta be the first to find out if it works. That someone could be you. Good luck. If you live in Vancouver or Toronto, probably fine. Edmonton or Winnipeg, I'd want to see some testing first, preferably from someone who's not me. Let's say you buy a Zeekr 007 for $45,000. 3 years later, you want to sell it. What's it worth? Nobody knows. There's no used market for these cars in Canada. No trade-in data. no price guides. And if the brand struggles or pulls out of Canada, your car could be worth almost nothing. Compare that to a Tesla or a BMW, where resale values are more predictable. That's a real financial risk you're taking. This is the one that worries me most. Canada just broke ranks with the United States. The US still has 100% tariffs on Chinese EVs. Canada just dropped to 6%. The US government literally said, Canada will regret this decision. Think about what that means. The US and Canada have the most integrated auto industry in the world. Parts flow back and forth across the border constantly. If the US pressures Canada to reverse this deal or puts restrictions on Chinese vehicle components, what happens to your car? And here's another thing. Can you even drive a Chinese EV into the United States? Right now, unclear. That's a problem if you live near the border or travel to the US regularly. Prime Minister Carney said China is now more predictable than the United States as a trade partner. That's a wild statement, and it tells you how unstable the situation really is. Your car collects a lot of data: where you drive, how you drive, your contacts if you sync your phone, your voice if you use voice commands. Where does that data go? With a Chinese vehicle, it could be stored on servers in China. And Chinese companies are required by law to share data with their government if asked. Now, is that different from Tesla or Google collecting your data? Maybe not, but it's worth thinking about, especially if you're someone who cares about privacy. But here's where this gets really interesting, and nobody's talking about this. Canadian dealerships are sitting on millions of dollars worth of EV inventory right now, and they're about to get hammered. Think about it. You're a dealer in Toronto. You've got 15 EVs on your lot. You know, the ones that have been sitting there since June, accumulating dust and passive-aggressive looks from your sales manager. And in 6 months, Chinese EVs are showing up at $15,000 to $20,000 less. What do? You discount. Hard. You discount. Like your quarterly bonus depends on it, which it does. I've already started seeing it. Dealers are offering $5,000 to $10,000 off EVs that they couldn't move 3 months ago because they know what's coming. It's like watching someone try to sell ice in November when they know winter's coming. And here's the other problem for them. How do they even get these Chinese EVs? BYD isn't going to use traditional dealership. They're probably going direct to consumer, like Tesla. Or they'll partner with a few select dealer groups. So if you're a Honda dealer in Mississauga, you don't get access. You just get to watch your EV inventory lose value every month like it's a cryptocurrency. That's rough for dealers, but it's an opportunity for buyers. Welcome to capitalism. If you're shopping for an EV right now, here's my advice. You have two plays. Play 1, the deal hunter. Wait 3 to 6 months. Watch dealer inventory. When March 1st hits and these Chinese EVs get officially announced for Canada, dealers are going to panic. I'm talking existential crisis levels of panic. Like watching them realize their entire business model might be outdated. That's when you walk in and negotiate hard on a 2024 or 2025 EV that's been sitting. You could get a $60,000 Ioniq 5 for $45,000, a $75,000 BMW i4 for $58,000, a $90,000 Audi e-tron GT for $70,000. Because dealers need to move inventory before Chinese competition shows up. That's your window. Use it wisely. Or don't. I'm not your financial advisor. Play 2. Wait for the Chinese EVs. If you're willing to be a guinea pig, no service network, no resale data, no track record, you could save even more. A $45,000 Xiaomi SU7 that does 0 to 100 in 2.8 seconds? That's insane value. A $45,000 Zeekr 007 that's faster and more luxurious than a Model 3, that's a deal. But you're taking on risk, early adopter risk. If something goes wrong, you're on your own for a while, so you'll have plenty of time to explain to your spouse why you bought a car from a phone company. So here's how I think about it. If you're a gambler and you love EVs, play the game. Either get a crazy deal on current inventory or wait for the Chinese cars and take the risk. If you're risk averse, just buy an ICE car. Seriously, like a nice, boring, reliable Camry that'll never make you question your life choices at 2 a.m. when you're Googling Zeekr Service Center Canada. The EV market is about to get wild. Prices will fluctuate, resale values will tank on some brands. Service networks will be a mess for a few years. A Camry or an Accord? Boring, so boring, aggressively boring. But predictable, and you won't lose $20,000 in depreciation when a $25,000 Chinese EV hits the market. And here's the last thing to watch. This doesn't just affect Canada, it affects the US too. Right now, the US has 100% tariffs on Chinese EVs. Canada just dropped to 6%. So what happens when Canadians can buy a $45,000 luxury EV and Americans are stuck paying $80,000 for the same experience? Either Trump backs down and drops US tariffs, which would blow open the American market, or he doubles down and punishes Canada for breaking ranks. Either way, the North American auto market is about to look very different in 12 months. And if you're shopping for an EV in 2026, you're right in the middle of the chaos. Which means you can either get a crazy deal or take a crazy depreciation loss. Choose wisely. Chinese luxury EVs are coming to Canada in March. 24,500 of them can be above $35,000, and some of them are legitimately impressive. Some of them are also made by a phone company, but that's 2026 for you. Dealerships are panicking. Current EV inventory is about to get discounted hard, and the market is going to be chaos for the next 12 to 18 months. You know, like the housing market, but with cars. So here's my question for you. Which play are you making? Are you waiting for Chinese EVs and taking the early adopter risk? Are you buying discounted inventory now and trying to time the bottom? Or are you just sitting it out with an ICE car until the dust settles? Which, let's be honest, is probably the smartest move. Drop your strategy in the comments. I want to know what you're thinking, especially if you're planning to buy a car from a company whose main product is smartphones. And if you want to know the moment these cars hit Canadian roads, which brands come first, real Canadian pricing, and whether they actually survive our winters, subscribe. I'll be covering every update as this unfolds, because this is the biggest disruption the Canadian auto market has seen in decades, and I, for one, can't wait to see how spectacularly this either succeeds or becomes a case study in business school. Thanks for watching.